Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the Let's Talk About It podcast. If you're new with us, we drop a brand new episode every first and third Friday of the month. But I have with me one of my most favorite people of all time in the world, in my life, aka my pops, dad. What's going on?
Hey, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
See, this is where I get my radio voice, I guess, from. People say that. People say you have a pretty good radio voice. So I'm like, oh, I appreciate it. But then they listen to you, and you're just like legendary with your voice.
I appreciate that.
At the time we're recording this is New Year's Day.
Yes, it
But
is.
how you been, pops?
Well, fantastic. You guys are in town and we're just enjoying the moment.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
good.
grateful and thankful.
Good, good,
Yes,
good.
sir.
Good. Well, I'm gonna dive right into today's topic. Dad, one of the things I've loved about you, obviously, you and I have a great relationship, and that's just a testament to who you are as a person, who you are as a dad. But I've noticed who you are as a father translates, though, also just with honestly all relationships. You know
Mm-hmm.
how you are as a husband to mom, how you've been with both me and Kayla. You know, of course, now my marriage with Juby. But I've just noticed you highly value people. You're always present in the moment, and people call it networking in the business world, and even then I kind of wrestle with that just because sometimes it can feel so sterile, kind of like usy, and I know there's an art to that, there's an importance to it, but I'm gonna take it a step further with you. You just genuinely care about people.
Mm-hmm.
You always have. So I just kind of want to intro it with you, or have you kind of take us on this journey. Where where did your heart begin for just having a genuine love and passion for people? We'll just start there.
Hmm. Great question, son. Great question. I've always had just a general passion for people. I guess it goes back to my upbringing. And as I shared earlier, I try to get the individual talking about themselves. Because basically, people and individuals love to talk about themselves. But going back to answering your question, ah, that's taking me a rewind back to all the way to my childhood, where I really, really honestly cared about people because of the way I was raised, and I always actually cared more about others than myself. So as I grew and became older, that is, I was more interested in other people. So when we had a conversation or started a conversation or I went into a room, I wanted to know more about them.
Mm.
And people love to talk about themselves. And my mom always told me, that you can go into a room full of strangers or come out with a bunch of
That's
friends.
a fact. I've seen
And
it.
and so that's where that foundation comes from. It's from the way I was raised, where I had that compassion for people, where it was not all about me. And so I think that's where it came from.
So one of the statements you said was that people love talking about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is true, and oftentimes, sometimes people just don't even know it. But how do
Correct.
you do that? So maybe the better question is like, what are questions that you find yourself asking, or what are things you find yourself doing to get people to talk about themselves? Because I've seen you meet the quietest of individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow they get around you, they are not quiet anymore. So, what are some things you do or questions that you ask to get people to start talking about themselves?
Good question. Um, for me, it's not very difficult at all. Just because it's human nature that people love to talk a little bit about themselves, and so I would start off with idle chit chat, and I'd make a little bit of a spill about me, but I have an elevator pitch ready to go so I don't bore people. So that elevator pitch may be 20 or 30 seconds. And one thing I learned along the road, and I think I learned it also from your grandma, what we call Nana, and I've incorporated in my conversation, uh, is now more importantly, how are you doing?
She does do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I took that and
And it
made
was
it
a
part of.
genuine ask.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so I took that piece and embedded it into my conversation.
Mm.
And so again, after my 30-second elevator pitch about me. And I said, now, more importantly, how about you? What's going on with you? And it'll get them started. And I said, well, people love to talk about where they came from. And people like to talk about their family, particularly if they have kids. And the biggest question is, and we've always asked you and Kayla, as you were coming along in your high school, collegiate years, if money or time was not an issue, what is it you really want to do?
Mm.
And people start really thinking about that. And
So let's back up. I want to pause
Mhm.
right there.
Sure.
Because you've already given us a lot.
Okay.
So you said you start off with like a little 30-second elevator pitch,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
What does even that entail?
That's
Because it's kind of your runway is what you're saying to connect with somebody.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
go. So start off there. Like, what's the 30-second pitch?
So the pitch should be, I'll break down the pitch for you as I introduce myself. Hey, how you doing? I'm Mark Benton. Hey, I'm one of the, in this case, I'm one of the civilian aid of the Secretary of the Army. And one of the things that we do is we help the Secretary of the Army recruit. We help the Secretary of the Army with active duty, reserve, and National Guard service members' issues. And we help them in the transition as they're transitioning out of the service for what they call Soldier for Life. So we have those 3 pillars. And I love doing it. It's one of my passions. It's a way for me to continue to serve. But now, more importantly, tell me more about you.
Like a boss. Did it right there on the spot.
Right.
So basically, it's almost the 5 W's in a way. Almost
Correct.
your personal who, what, where I came from, what I'm about, and why I'm here. And then immediately you bring it right back to them.
Mhm.
And then as you do, you're asking questions like, where are you originally from?
Mhm.
What do you do? How long have you been doing it for? And then, like you said, the money question, like if money were no issue.
Correct.
Okay, so go
If
ahead.
money or
Continue
time
from
is
there.
no issue. And so once they start their discussion, and they may be into a field I might not be familiar with, and I'm like, so I give a little twick of the eyebrow. I said, now, that's an interesting field. Give me an example, because people explain things to you, and they have a tendency to explain it in a technical manner, which you may not understand
Mhm.
based on the field. So I would say, look, give me a hypothetical, give me a scenario
Mhm.
on what you do. And they say, oh, well, if you're my client, it will entail X, Y, Z. I said, okay, so if I was your client, Mr. Client, you do this and you do that. So how would that help me? And then so they give me an example, and they just start going. It just opens the door, the gates open, the
Right.
floodgates going, and that's where you start having that dialogue and that connection.
Something about that is so important because, and I've learned this from you too, you're not afraid to admit those moments where you don't know something.
Correct.
And the reason why I think that's so important is, so for example, when you meet people and someone says what their job is or their description, they go into their technical terms, which we all have. We assume or feel like we have to take on the responsibility of knowing what they're talking about. But you're not afraid to do that. If you don't know what they're talking about, you're not afraid to stop them. You go, hey, I'm new to this. I've even heard you use language like, talk to me like I'm dumb. What
Mhm.
does that mean?
Yep.
Why is that so important?
Yeah. Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old, right? Like a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm looking at the bigger picture. And here's what I mean by that. When I learn of other people's occupation, I want to know, or I would like to know, or interested in knowing what you do because I store it in my mental filing cabinet
Hmm.
for future reference. I may not have an interest in anything you're doing, but I store it in my mental filing cabinet, or even when I take a note in my contact, I will put down Mark Benton II met at the such and such event, and here she does X, Y, Z.
Hmm. So you put like a little note or caveat.
I do.
Yeah.
So in the future, if I run into a situation, an individual that may need that service, you know what? I just met someone 2 weeks ago that I think can help you, right? Because it's not all about me.
Hmm.
So I'm learning what that individual does, what they're interested in, and I can make a referral, whether it's a job opportunity, whether it's a business opportunity, or whether it's just a connection for additional nuggets for a job, right? You just never know where those things go.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I learned a lot of that as I was growing up, because it was just it was just part of me.
Mm-hmm.
and I developed it more as I became an Army officer, as I became a business person, and as I met your grandfather, Pop, who he always shared, you can't help nobody if you don't know nobody,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so true. So I may not be interested in your field per se personally, but I'm interested in a way to store it to possibly help somebody else down the road. That's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I do that.
You really helped me with that when I was a green lieutenant. I was
Okay.
maybe a second lieutenant about to be first, or like maybe my first year, my first lieutenant. So maybe basically 8, 10 years or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I called you one time, and I said, I was telling you about this, basically this brief I got out of, or some type of course, whatever, and I got out of. And you said, "How was it?" I was like, "Honestly, Dad, I couldn't tell you one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pay attention because I just didn't care about it."
Mm-hmm.
And in a good old lovingly dad fashion way, you let me get my spiel out. He said, "Well, son," I said, I can appreciate that. It's, it bores you because it's not something you're interested in." He said, "But I want you to consider these one of two things." The first thing you said was, consider the possibility that it might matter to you later on in the future because your interests can change. Or number two, you're right. You may never ever care about this in your life. But I guarantee you will come across someone between now and the next 2 to 3 years that will. And though you may not care about the topic, I do know you enough that you care about people. And that just shifted everything for me.
Okay.
And so ever since then, when I sit down with people and I'm talking, and it doesn't have to but even be about a job. It could be
Right.
about a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I'm not a hunter or fisher. I don't understand anything about that.
Right.
But I'm around people that I care about that do. And so when they tell me stories, and the other thing I've learned in this process is I pay attention to what excites people. So, I'm listening to their tone, their pitch, and so when they go, "Oh man, I went hunting today," or "I went hunting last night," I've learned to lean into that excitement, and I go, "Tell me about it. How was it?" And I don't care about it, but I do care about them. And so, as I had to say, that's something I just always appreciated about you. And so, to people who are listening right now, it's okay to not care about the topic. It's okay to not care about the presentations or the courses. But I'm willing to bet that all of us have someone in our lives, whether it's our family, our spouses, our kids, people we work
Mm-hmm.
with, friends. You do care about them.
Sure.
So care enough about the subject to care about the person. So that's just something I've just always appreciated about you. Something else that I'm thinking of, obviously it's one thing to connect and initiate a relationship. It's another thing to maintain it. What are things that you find yourself doing personally to maintain that consistency of continuing to build relationships?
Well, certain holidays or most holidays, remember I said I make those contacts on my phone
Mm-hmm.
that I met Mr. Jones at such and such event 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I literally just pick a holiday emoji or icon and just send something out periodically, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. But one thing I do for sure is immediately at the end of the day, if I met 4 or 5 people before I go to bed, I've already sent in 4 or 5 text messages. "Hey, it was great meeting you this afternoon," or even last night, within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I still am on their mind. So when I send a future text message, I'm already in the queue. I'm already in the queue of their phone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because again, I've already sent out, "It was great meeting you last night at the XYZ function."
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether they respond or not, doesn't matter.
Lean into that because people get. Let's be real. We live in a sensitive culture.
Right,
How many times do you and I hear, "Well, I text so and so,"
right,
or "I called someone, I didn't hear back from them,"
right.
and they get so offended that they just diminish it. So lean into that, like that, because that's so good. You're saying whether they respond back or not. Why is that so important?
It's irrelevant because for me, how many of us received the text message and not responded, but you're still tracking that it came? How many times did you get my text message? Yeah, but I didn't get a chance to get to it. You got the text message. Now, you got it and didn't respond. They're tracking.
Right.
Most business people are tracking. At the same time, we all get inundated with text messages. So say I did that follow-up within 24 hours. It was great meeting you. Hey, let them know who I am, where I give them a memory sentence, where we met. It was great talking about your subject matter to anchor them back to that
Mm-hmm.
introduction of each other. And then 2, 3, 4 months from now, hey, just touching base. I trust all is well. Have a great Thanksgiving weekend. I'm out. And then when or if you need something down the road, you need to make a connection. Hey, I ran into XYZ person. They're interested in your field. Would it be okay if I refer them? It's not the first time that they hear from me.
Mm.
If and when you need something,
Mm-hmm.
a favor, or I'll always, if you happen to know, that's my biggest, you know,
It's a great
hey,
leading question. Yeah.
hey, reaching out, I trust all is well. The reason why I'm reaching out is wondering if you happen to know anyone that I'm thinking is them, but I'm not putting them on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like when mom has a dentist, she will say, if you happen to know anyone that needs a good dentist, instead of, hey, come on in if you need a dentist.
Mm.
It's if you happen to know anyone that needs a good dentist, right?
That's
You
really
don't
good.
you don't put anybody on the spot,
Right.
right?
What you're doing is you're still approaching them as the individual that you've initiated and now you're trying to build a relationship with, but you're also leaving it open for anyone else basically. And it's
Correct.
not putting them on the spot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Or if I need some information, I get, hey, if you happen to know, let me know. Or I would like your feedback. Maybe I do need a direct. Maybe I do need a direct answer.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to get your feedback on something,
Mm-hmm.
and I really want them to get involved.
Yeah.
But I don't want to push it
Right.
in
Like
my
pressure it.
right.
Yes.
So I say, hey, I'm reaching out because I'm wanting to get your feedback. I know
Right.
that this is your field,
Yeah.
and they give me their feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just happened a month ago
Mm-hmm.
with me. So that's my approach.
No, that's really, really good. One of the things that you've mentioned before, too, is one of the challenges of being a leader or mentor, parent influencer, is knowing how to manage the tension of being available to people,
Uh-huh.
but also knowing kind of when to back off. And a statement you had made was, as a mentor, leader, parent, you have to learn how to back off. Why is that so important? And maybe the better question is, how do you manage that tension?
That's tough because being a parent and a retired law enforcement officer, where I've even mentored some of the people I arrest or had an encounterment with, as a mentor or parent or guardian, you want so much to help them. And because you've already been down the road, you can see things that they can't see. And the job of a mentor is to help avoid those landmines, sometimes political landmines, that they can't see.
Mm.
But you see it coming because you've been down that road.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned from my mentor, even mentors need mentors. I learned from my mentor that all we can do is plant the seed of information.
Mm.
Once we plant that seed of information, it's not our job to harvest the seed of information.
We got to pause right there.
Okay.
That's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes the pressure off of the parent,
Mm-hmm.
that mentor, that leader.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to fall in that savior mentality. So it's our job to plant the seed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the job to harvest it.
Correct.
Man, that's so
Of
good.
information.
Yeah.
That's correct. I planted the seed to this mentee. He wanted to be what's called a senior executive service, SES. And I just gave him some brief information on it. I sent him 1 or 2 video clips, and he took it and blew it up. He did so much research that I introduced him to an SES. And the SES sent him information about his resume. And my mentee's like, whoa, he's got a powerful resume. And the SES says, when he does his research, and not until he does his research, he's more than welcome to reach out to me. So he's already saying, don't call me if you're not serious.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So he did a month's research. Then he texted me and said, I'm ready to contact the SES now, because he's already done his background search. So he did the harvesting of that plant of my information.
That's a great reminder that even as the mentor, leader, parent, guardian, whatever, what you're saying is move at the pace of the individual.
The mentee runs the relationship. In a mentor-mentee relationship, the unwritten rule is the mentee regulates it, because the mentor doesn't want to waste your time. If you're interested, you'll run it.
Mm-hmm.
You will follow up accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
You will stay in touch with me. It's not my job to chase. I can check in on you.
I'm
But-
glad you said that,
Mhm.
because sometimes it makes it feel like that people, like you said, from the mentee standpoint or even the child standpoint, it's easy for it to feel like it's 100% them. But what you're saying is, from a mentee/child standpoint, there is a posture of ownership we have to take. However, as that parent, leader, or mentor, just do those check-ins. Like, hey, how are you? Checking in on you, just seeing how you're doing. So it's a both and, but the mentee/child has to do their part.
Absolutely. Because then we don't want to overstep our bound,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're not interested, let's not waste each other's
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not interested, that's okay. And so that saves everyone's energy.
So
and
what do you do when they're not?
frustration.
What do
When
you
they're
do
not-
like when you've gone out of your way? Because I know you've dealt with this, both, I'm sure, as a parent with me and Kayla growing up, as well as with mentees. So what do you do when that child, that mentee, you've given it everything that you can think of,
and they're not checking in?
and they're not doing their part? What do you do? Because people feel that pressure and tension.
No question. If that happens, and you're right, that has happened where I've even reached out and there's no return, follow up per our last conversation. Your mother and my mentor has helped me dealt with that. They said, you've done your part, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've given them the information. You even followed up 1 or 2 or 3 months after, and they haven't followed up. And you pray, and just shy that it doesn't kill them. Fortunately or unfortunately, you just got situations where people just have to learn for themselves. You know, the best way to learn is through the mistakes, learning through the mistakes of others.
Unpack that.
That is because if I've already been down a road and experienced a not so good venture, it would be who's of me to learn from the mentor who's been down the road. Why do I need to experience that, that pain? And I don't know if you remember coming up, I always told you there's 2 kinds of pain. The pain of regret and the pain of discipline. And the pain of discipline is a whole lot less painful than the pain of regret.
Wow.
Because you didn't pursue the things you wanted to do. You didn't want to saddle up and pay your dues, as we say. And the years go by. And you let 5, 10, 15 years go by. And you're like, wow. And you see other people who did pursue what they wanted. And you see their cash is good, their investment is good, their occupation is good because they did the pain of discipline. You don't feel like going to class. You don't feel like studying. You know, I always remember when you were a kid, you was like, Dad, I don't feel like going to school today, right? I said, oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I understand. And you said, well, oh, I don't have to go to school today? I said, no, I didn't say that, but it's okay that you don't feel like going. And that's okay. You don't have to feel like doing it. Because if you ran your life off feelings, your life is going to be tragic. It's going to be tragic. So the pain of discipline, we don't feel like going to work. We don't feel like working extra hours. We don't feel like getting an extra job. We don't feel like studying. Painful. Or the pain of regret. One of those things are going to take the lead. And it's a lot less painful to do the pain of discipline than the pain of people kill themselves, but they're so regretful. Suicide rates are high. They're so sorry they didn't do X, Y, Z and follow up on their dream. So the pain of regret can be a mental health issue too.
Wow.
So those are the 2 kinds of pain.
Yeah.
That anyway.
A statement I remember you said too, going back to that story when we were kids, you said, that's okay, you don't feel like going to school, you're going to school. You had followed up with, you said, son, the true definition of discipline is doing what needs to be done despite how you feel.
Correct.
And I mean, obviously here it is 20 plus years later, I've always remembered that, you know? And so I'm just reminded that, you know, discipline is not sexy. It's grossly underrated and
Correct.
drastically undervalued.
Yep.
Because like you said, we tie it to a feeling. You
Correct.
know, so I'm just a pretty, and even backtracking a little bit too about how we deal with individuals that, you know, we go out for and they don't want anything to do with it. It's okay to let it go. You know, let that person go. It doesn't mean that you're giving up on them.
Correct.
Um, but it, and I think people think that's synonymous with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're backing off doesn't mean you've given up on them. It means you're giving them room to be who they are,
Correct.
whether you agree with it or not. Because,
Correct.
and you said it before too, it's their life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think what helps me with that too is I think that's exactly how God and Jesus is with
Mm-hmm.
us.
All right, just ready to say, yep. Free will.
Yeah,
Free will. Right.
you know,
So I'll let you pick your poison. Right.
yeah,
Pick your route, whatever that is. Because I would get so frustrated, like you said at first. I was like, dude, let me help you. I see it coming. Please let me help you. I can really help you. I really can. But I have to get my mental hands off you, emotionally hands off you, or the person, and just okay, and let them experience the route that they're going to take. And I've been there. I made so many mistakes, and I think those are mistakes now. God has me in a place, in such a sweet spot that I think He let me make those mistakes on purpose, so I can really help prepare the next generation in a way that I probably couldn't do had I not made those mistakes. So um, there you go.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's great. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Again, I'm just reminded that we serve a God who loves us
Mm-hmm.
unconditionally, while simultaneously never forces Himself on us because, like you said, of free will.
There
And
you
if
go.
we're image bearers, we need to do the same. So I think the way to resolve that is maintain that attitude of availability, while also don't force it. Don't force your love and support on someone
Correct.
else. So
And be there when or if it goes south,
mm,
and then let it be okay. That's a lesson learned.
something I remember.
Because it's easy to say, "I told you so."
Right.
That's the way out.
But you know what though? I'm glad you said that because when we were kids, you told me and Kayla, she was probably 6, I was 9, something like that. And you said, I will never, you said, me and your mother will never be angry at you for telling us the truth. So we'll be disappointed if you come to us first. We will never be upset at you. And again, Kayla was 6, 7, I was 9 or 10. And I said it to say, and I didn't have language for it then, but I remember even then being the age of 9 or 10, basically just, you gave us basically permission to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going back to like the pain of regret. You know, I think that's where that comes from, you know, or people not reaching out for help because when they do want to, when they hit their personal rock bottom, they feel like they don't have a safe person or a person that, like you said, no one wants to hear, I told you so. Like the consequence is going to show
Mm-hmm.
that I told
Right.
you so.
Right.
The last thing they need is mom, dad,
Sure.
grandma, grandpa,
Sure.
friend, whatever your role is in that person's life to say, I told you so. They're already going to know that. And so it just makes me, it helps remind me, you know, me and Juby don't have kids, but, you know, obviously we have friends, you know, we obviously have brothers and sisters and family. I hope people don't ever look at me or Juby, you know, or anyone that says, I don't want to talk with Mark or Juby because all they're going to do is say, I told you so. So that's just a great reminder for all of us. Are you that safe place for people when they blow it? Because people are going to fail,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I just always appreciate that about you guys. So one, thank you. And it's just nice to see you continue to carry that 20 plus years later for everybody.
Mhm.
So
Appreciate that.
I love that. We both obviously have a huge admiration for, I call him Pop-Pop,
Uh-huh.
a.k.a. Mom's dad. He
Yep.
passed away back in 2009. But just, he was one of the smartest guys probably I've ever met. But just a little bit, just give me a couple talking points regarding, like, what are some of the biggest lessons you learned from him? Because I'm sure there's a lot you learned, too, from him with building relationships. What are just some things just off the top of your head that just come to mind regarding lessons learned from Pop-Pop?
One of the things that sticks in my mind with, as we call it, Pop, is, and I think I shared it earlier, it's hard to help somebody if you don't know anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Pop was, and he was always involved in various boards and whether it be nonprofits, he was very politically involved, and if someone needed something or was looking for a way to handle something, whether it be business or educational, or even finding money for something for education, he always had a source. So I learned the importance of networking, and that has been so helpful. Um, at the same time, I don't know if this is part of answering the question, between him and both my parents, they both collaborated on in the way they raise the kids is, and this is going to do a rewind for you, is we don't owe you anything.
Mm.
Once you're once you are grown and got a high school diploma, um, both Pop, aka mom's dad, mom's mom, and my mom and my dad, they all in their own way collectively, because your mom and her siblings came from a house full of doctors,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't get privilege,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They weren't self-entitled. My mom and dad, same thing. We both collectively rather, in their own way, had a mission not to raise kids with a self entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think I shared this with you, and I shared it with you and Kayla, from my mom and dad. I remember my dad said, "Son, when you're 18 and you get a high school diploma, we just want to know. We just want you to know. Your mom and I don't know you anything." He says, now I'm 12 years old when he tells me this, so he's setting it up. So,
It's giving you 6 years to process
right,
that.
exactly. And so when 10th, 11th grade came, he said, "So what are you going to do?" He says, "Well, let me know. I was just shy of getting an academic scholarship or athletic scholarship. Let me know what you're going to do, and how you going to pay for it, shy of getting those two items." And so I gave him this look like, "Aren't you going to pay for it?" And he looks at me and just laughs. He's like, "Oh, you thought I was going to pay for it?" He said, "You didn't remember that when you're 18 and had a high school diploma, we don't owe you nothing?"
Right.
So I said, "I want to go to college." He said, "Okay, how you going to pay for it?" We went through that again, and he started telling me about, the ROTC and the military, and he said, "Oh, it covers that." And he says, "Oh, it doesn't cover room and board?" I was like, he said, "Now, we can assist you." He said, "We don't owe you, but we can assist you." And that's what we did, you and Kayla.
Mm-hmm.
We assisted you. And at the same time, you're not going to assist the fool.
Mm-hmm.
Going out there getting speeding tickets, academic probation, and all that. So both mom's parents and my parents had that sense of raising.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, when your mother finished dental school and we came back from Tennessee, we came back to Nashville. We came back to California from Nashville. Pop-ups were telling us how much we gonna pay him to stay at his place for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't nothing free out here.
Mm-hmm.
He gave us a couple of months grace period.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that how well connected both sides were in terms of raising their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I learned a lot in terms of the way they raised their kids was very similar, because your mother and I were very scared to get married,
Mm-hmm.
because we both come from divorced families.
Mm-hmm. By the way, how long you guys been married?
This would be 36 years.
Let's go.
Yep, 36 years. So I learned a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I went off on a tangent on that.
No, you
but,
didn't. Well, some of the things that stuck out as you're just speaking is, you guys always had a standard,
mm-hmm.
and again, like you said, that came from Pop-Up and Granddaddy, and Grandma. Yep. So there wasn't a surprise. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed, whether, from a kid's perspective, an employee perspective, a mentee perspective, is do we as the leader or parent, do we communicate clear standards and expectations? My buddy, David Montez, I like what he said. He said, bro, he's 22-year master sergeant now. He's in the Corps with me, former drill sergeant, former first sergeant. But something he said I love, he said, Mark, expectation management is so big, man. And he said, I just believe so many people miss out on growth an opportunity, regardless of what your age, what your cultural background, gender, whatever it is. He said so many people miss out on being the greatest version of themselves because someone didn't come alongside and just manage their expectation. If they just gave them a
Absolutely.
clear standard. And so that's just something that you guys have always done well, you know? So that's a huge lesson learned, like you said, from Pop Pop. And that's something I've taken with me everywhere. So even,
Mm.
you know, when I was a brand new platoon leader and I found myself frustrated with my soldiers, I would even ask myself, well, did I give the clear standard? And if I didn't, then I had to take a step back and go, that's on me. You know? So, and what I also liked about what you shared is that it was a both and. You guys helped, but you helped because we took ownership. So it gives a reminder for all of us, those who are listening, think about the people in your life that you feel called to mentor, to guide, to lead, and ask yourself, is the people under you, have you communicated a clear standard and expectation for them to meet? And then if they have, how have they taken ownership so you can also help them be the fullest version of themselves? If they haven't, kind of going back to earlier in the conversation, it's okay to back off.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they got to learn the hard way. You know, man, this is great, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end it with a couple more lighthearted questions
Okay.
on a total different topic. All right.
Okay.
So don't think too much of it, but just want to get a little personal between you and me.
Okay.
So we're done with that.
Okay.
Moving on to something totally different. All right.
Sounds
So
good.
again, you and Mom have been married now 36 years.
Yes, sir.
Known each other pretty much 38. What do you love most about Mom?
Mom.
Or some things you love most
Right,
about
right, right. Your mother is, and I think I was sharing this just the other day, she's a unique individual. She's about business. She loves you, and she has a memory that she doesn't forget anything. She remembers your stuff, her stuff, my stuff, and she's all about taking care of business,
Yeah.
yet being a loving wife and a loving mother, and, and she's a no excuse kind of person. Your mother is already potentially actually working on her. She already has a doctorate degree. Now she's working on her second master's, so to speak. And just a no excuse. You know how some people say, I'll go to school when the kids are gone, or when, I can't go to school right now because of the kids, and I can't. Your mom is a no excuse. I mean, your mom had you in dental school,
Yeah.
and then it's just a no excuse. I think she gets a little bit of that from Pop Pop,
Yeah.
and
For sure.
and her
And
mother,
Nana, yeah.
and she's just so well driven. The way that mom can multitask is just unbelievable. So that's what I love about her, and,
Yeah.
and multitask her stuff and multitask your stuff
Yes,
too.
yes, absolutely. She's the boss.
Right?
That's
Did you?
great.
She'll be in the middle doing something for her, and then someone will come to her. Did you make that phone call to so and so? Like I told you 2 weeks ago. It just
It's funny because Julie would do that with me too. So we got great women.
absolutely.
Same question,
Yes.
but towards Kayla.
Kayla takes care of business too.
Yeah.
Both of them are educated women. Your mother comes from an educated family of women, and I love the way Kayla gets her hustle on.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like making sure her business in order so that she has an alternative plan. If one thing doesn't work out, she's always thinking about, okay, this is what I'm going to have so that I'm not caught off guard.
Yeah.
She's always been
It's
a
always
high achiever.
It's the thing I've always envied and admired simultaneously as her older brother.
Right.
I'm like, I'm proud of you.
Right.
I hate you.
I remember.
Why are you so great?
Right, right. I remember when Pop Pop used to pick you guys up. I'm sure you remember. He was picking you guys up to go to piano lessons, I believe, for a couple of weeks or maybe a month. And every week, that one day a week for 4 weeks, he would come and says, I picked up the kids today, and Kayla says she's bored. I'm like, but how are you bored and you're getting straight A's, right? Well, after about the third or fourth time of him giving us this feedback,
You had
we
like a
went,
B or C in behavior.
yeah, and
Yeah.
behavior.
It's like, how do you have A's in the hardest classes? You have a B, C in behavior. Like for me, I was like, man, give me that.
Right.
I had an A plus in
Right,
that.
right. She was so bored that her behavior was taken off in a different direction. But academically, she was just like, so finally, long story short, we ended up, talking to the principal, and had to move her up for another grade so she can be challenged. So, her and your mom are just such academic beasts,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's what I love about them,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and they're going to be able to
And that
keep them.
contagious laugh she has.
Oh, and then some.
If you've never heard my
Never.
sister's laugh, it's one to hear. You'll watch a movie and the scene might be like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the funniest, it'll be like a 3. But because you're watching with Kayla, you're
It,
laughing at a 7.
a minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum. Minimum.
That's great. Same question
Yes.
towards my wife, aka your daughter-in-law,
Mhm.
Juby. Was one of the things you love
Well,
most about
when
her.
I first met her, and then you guys saw that you guys were going to get more involved, and I started learning more about her, I realized, and when I say this, I realized that she was going to be supportive of you in your career, and at the time, your military career, being flexible, because it's hard to be a service member in any branch and not have the support of your family / particularly your spouse. And I always make a statement that she's a general's wife.
Mm.
And when I say that, not that you have to make general, but you know that in order to make general, you have to have a supporting spouse. It's
Mhm.
just not going to happen. So whether you're staying for 5 years or 8 years, when I make that statement is, you're the wife of a general, you're the wife of a supporting, you are a supporting spouse
Mhm.
above and beyond.
Mhm.
Because there's times that you guys were separated, geographically separated, and you guys weather through it.
Mhm.
And which basically, which is what your mother and I encountered.
Mhm.
And I always tease you about true separation, since we didn't have the Facebook, and we didn't have the watch
Zoom.
movies together and
Yeah.
the Zoom. We had the hardcore separation, but nevertheless, you had separation,
Yeah.
and you guys weathered through it, and that's support. Because as I shared with you before, I see so many service members say, "Oh, I got to get out, my old man, my old ladies," saying I'm gone too long. But then you wonder about the foundation of relationship, because again, how many people live together every day and can't stand each other?
Mhm.
So maybe the foundation of relationship not there in the first place,
Mhm.
because you're taking care of business, even though you're separated for 6 months, 9 months, you're taking care of business. And so we're going through a moment of not doing what we want to do to get to the moment that we want to do. So we
Mhm.
have to, as our Uncle Frederick said, you got to pay your dues,
Yeah.
which is my brother, and you got to pay your dues, and a lot of people don't want to do that. So you have a wife that supports that.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about her,
Yeah.
and she makes you laugh. You got to be careful what you tell her, 'cause
Juby is the most quick-witted person in my life. I have this running joke. I'm like, I think she wakes up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and just writes jokes.
I
and
hear
just
ya.
puts them in her pocket.
Right.
So I'm like, there's no way you came up with it that quick. Like, she's just-
Exactly.
and sometimes you don't know what to do
sense
with
of
it.
right. That sense of humor, absolutely. So that's what I love about her.
Yeah, yeah. Slightly different question. When you think back of our time together, what
Uh-huh.
is 1 to 2 of your favorite, funnest memories of
Uh-huh.
you and me?
When we went to San Jose
Oh,
for
gosh.
the men's retreat,
I had a feeling this was gonna be it.
and so I'm a playful kind of guy, and I just love to just laugh about nothing and just to laugh and play. And so I had taken a water bottle, and I had pretended to drink it. I did not take the lid off, but I went through the motions like I took the lid off, and I drank the water bottle, just a regular plastic water bottle. And then after I brought it away from my mouth, I swapped it real fast as though I was going to splash the water on him. And he got so angry. So obviously he reacted and put his arms
I
up.
flinched super bad. Like I was lying down in the bed. I caught up and everything, put my hands up.
And what'd you say?
I said, "You played too
You played
much."
too much. That was so memorable. And that's what it's about, creating those memories, right?
Yeah.
And then our cruise that we took.
Yeah, that was great.
We knew that you were wrapping up, and we knew that when I say wrapping up, your collegiate years and ready to move on, and the dynamics of the family was going to be different. So mommy booked us a trip family trip,
Yeah.
and I was a little like, how much was this cruise? What? But when we got there, it was the best thing. It was all four of us
Hmm.
in one room, and we just cramped in there and had a great time. So those are the first two items that stick out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the memory banks.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. You have 30 seconds to a minute to tell the whole world
Hmm.
whatever you want. What is a message you want to tell them just from your heart? That whether it's a word of encouragement.
Probably one of the things that I would, or a couple of bullet points or touch points I would share is do your family and your future kids a favor and don't have kids until you're ready. Me and mom were so ready that we were ready to give it all. And with that being said, don't get married till you're really ready to commit because you're getting together as a team to raise a future generation. And you want to make sure that both you and your spouse are on the same sheet of music and that you have God in the relationship. Because I tell you, without God, you know, and as much as we laugh, we don't have the perfect marriage, but without God, it wouldn't be here at 36 years. Because it's easy to walk away. It's easy to get angry and snip, but keep God in your life. I can't stress that more than enough, because it's important. It's important to live that example with your kids. It's important to make church a part of your family, just like work and school is. So those are some couple of touch points that I would have, is to make sure you include God in your relationship and set the example for that with your kids, because they're watching even though you don't think they're watching. They're really watching, because you tell me some things like, I did that, and you refresh my memory of, you like, Dad, did you remember when you did? I don't. So parents and future parents, they're watching you even though they're not saying anything. They're watching you, the way you carry yourself, the way you respond, the way you speak, and the way you come across. So I would say, make sure you carry God everywhere, and ask God for his will, because it's so important to go for our will. But make sure you're asking for God's will, and that if you make a mistake, it's okay. Your mistakes is not an end to your destiny.
Mm.
It's not an end to your destiny. So it's a learning moment, and you keep it moving.
Well, Dad, this has been fun.
It has been.
I've enjoyed this.
Yes, sir.
Did you enjoy it? Was this better than you thought?
It was better than I
Okay.
thought. It really was. I was a little concerned, but it actually ended up extremely well. Absolutely.
Good.
Much, much better.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for, talk about memories. This is absolutely awesome.
Good. Good, good, good. Well, again, if you guys enjoyed this, please do not forget to rate and review this show. You can go to my website, markkbentonii.com. You can go to Apple Podcasts, and Spotify officially has a spot for you to also rate this show. So, again, if you enjoyed this, please rate it, review it, and share this with somebody. Anyone you can think of right now. Right? If you're driving, don't do that. All right? If you're driving, don't do it later. But if you're at the house, you're at the coffee shop, whatever, maybe taking a little lunch break or something, share this with somebody right now. And don't forget to tag me and screenshot this. What is a big takeaway that you loved on this at Mark K. Benton 2 from my Instagram page. And I'm so grateful for you. I hope you enjoyed this session. Until next time, love, grace, and peace out.